to get some eat.
This is Gary Thompson, the most mentally deficient man in the state of Kentucky. And before you call me ableist, it has nothing to do with his cognitive ability. This guy's just a complete idiot that can't stop getting in trouble.
Gary, I know what your deal is now. Let's just be real here, okay?
I'm not doing no deal. Leave me off camera. I don't want to be on it.
Arrest after arrest after arrest, this precious little beggar would have the world believe that he's a charity case, a sweet special needs angel that only the most jaded of passers-by could refuse opening their wallets for. Well, just know if you do, you're a sucker and his latest scam victim. This is the story of one of America's most shameless frauds. This is the tale of the Bogus Beggar.
Yeah, I'm really good at it, really good. I clear about $100,000 a year doing this.
Don't want to be on camera. I break it.
Investigators in Franklin County have arrested Gary Thompson on a rape charge.
And I gotta go, y'all. I gotta make some money.
Born in Austin, Texas, Gary's introduction to the world of disability came on the back of a Honda three-wheeler. As a kid, he suffered a serious injury riding one of these, an injury that left him with mild to moderate left-sided hemiparesis, which would affect him for life. His mother was able to sue Honda and actually won $2.5 million in a settlement because of this incident. Though partially handicapped and sometimes requiring a wheelchair to get around, Gary could in fact walk, and his cognitive abilities were intact. Well, sort of. Thanks to reckless spending, the settlement money would all but dry up during Gary's teenage years, and that's when a flair for criminality and fraud began to become apparent within him, with Gary stealing from his family members in various ways to get money, eventually leading him to be excommunicated from them entirely.
Thompson's uncle, Gary Horton, says his nephew has caused trouble since he was a teenager.
He forged 3 checks on me.
He says the family has given up on him.
He can go to no place, nowhere. He's run out of places to go.
After being kicked out, Gary would become a vagrant of sorts, traveling from state to state, begging strangers for money from the seat of his wheelchair. He barely scraped by this way, but relatively speaking, Gary did better than many of his panhandling cohorts. Being in a wheelchair gave him an inherent advantage in terms of evoking sympathy from strangers, and when Gary realized this, he came up with a dastardly plan to increase his bumming income. In his own words, that plan was to act mentally handicapped.
I am normal. It just helps to be mentally handicapped.
I got mental handicap and I'm working for my money. Please help but spare my wheelchair today and all my coins. Somebody take it.
Possessing a degree in speech pathology, yes, I'm being serious about that, Gary debuted his cartoonishly voiced and ridiculous special needs character on the streets of Lexington, Kentucky. And the payoff was almost immediate. The man began making thousands of dollars a month using the dopey voice coupled with his wheelchair and drawn-up appearance, tricking kind-hearted strangers into thinking that he was a stranded, mentally handicapped person who had lost his family and needed bus money to get back to them.
Well, I mean, people give people in wheelchairs money that are handicapped or just not act retarded anymore and get the money and just all be normal.
Gary's self-described retarded persona was so successful, he garnered a sycophantic entourage of lesser criminals who escorted him around from place to place, pushing their disabled kingpin's wheelchair like orderly servants. In the Kentucky panhandling scene, Gary was both village idiot and king of the hill.
Try to get to the restaurant.
It's said that Gary's mentally disabled character became so effective at soliciting money that in 1 year he had made over $100,000 off unwitting, kind-hearted individuals. Yes, that's right, you're waking up at 7 a.m., bumper-to-bumper traffic on the way to work. Meanwhile, this guy is role-playing a mental disability and just cleared your net income for the year.
Yeah, I'm really good at it, really good.
Gary got away with this scheme undetected for several years, but given the absurd nature of this disabled act, it was only a matter of time before some folks got suspicious. cracks began to show in the character as Gary became too comfortable in his handicap-accessible seat on the gravy train. When he thought people weren't looking, Gary sometimes would stand up unassisted from his wheelchair. Curious because he seemingly told strangers that he couldn't walk. And there were times that he could be seen conversing with associates using a completely different voice than the one heard when he was begging for money.
You were just talking to me fine a second ago.
When?
Members of the public had good reason to believe that Gary was a fraud, and folks began reporting him to the police. So many reports were submitted that cops would actually hold a press conference about the so-called Bogus Beggar in February of 2013, which drew a small crowd. And guess who was hanging around outside the conference building as this meeting was going on? Seemingly basking in the glory of his own infamy, Gary was just hanging around outside, almost in spite of the public complaints about him. Yeah, it's like he was daring for someone to stand up to him, or, maybe even wheel up to him. Reporters from local LEX 18 News who were present at the press conference about the beggar would do exactly that, spotting the special needs scammer and confronting him, exposing not only Gary's scheme in 4K, but also his shamelessness regarding what he was doing.
He says he makes $60,000 to $100,000 a year, and he admits he does so by tugging at your heartstrings.
Why that camera for?
Chances are you've seen him.
Try to get to the restaurant.
Sympathized with his wheelchair, his drawn hands. His story ripped at your heart.
They give me money and to get some eat.
The wreck left him with limited mobility, but it certainly didn't make him mentally handicapped, and we knew better. You were just talking to me fine a second ago.
When?
Lexington police say he's taken his act on tour of the city to places like the Lansdowne Shops, Hamburg, and the Zandale corridor of Nicholasville Road. We busted this bogus beggar right outside the police department, just minutes after a press conference about
I'm
it.
the best in Lex. I appreciate you guys busting me. Yeah, I'm really good at it, really good. I clear about $100,000 a year doing this.
$100,000 a year.
Yeah, about 60 to 100.
The 30-year-old said he's from Austin, Texas, and has done the same thing there. He also says he's got a degree in speech-language pathology. He's combined that training with his wheelchair and found that panhandling pays.
Ready to move to another city and start this?
No, I'm not. I'm just beginning.
And just like that,
My bead boy, I'm just playing. I gotta go, y'all. I gotta make some money.
he was back at it again.
Thanks to this scathing report, the bogus beggar quickly found himself becoming the most notorious disabled person in Kentucky. He found less panhandling success on the street in the time immediately following it. People would call him out. So Gary decided to lay low for a while and employ his scheme in different areas and venues until things cooled off a bit.
Oh hey, you guys enjoying the video so far? You know it's even better if you have a good meal to eat while you're watching it. And today's sponsor, Factor, can hook you up. Factor makes hitting your nutritional goals easy, shipping fresh, never frozen meals right to your front door. All you gotta do is put them in the microwave for a couple of minutes and bam, you got a damn near restaurant quality meal ready to be devoured. The one that I'm eating right now is the sun-dried tomato chicken with zucchini noodles. It took me just a few minutes to make. The chicken is extremely tender. I've got a YouTube video to watch. What else can a guy ask for? Factor has tons of options when it comes to meal plans. They've got keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and my personal favorite, protein plus. Hence the chicken. The Protein Plus meals come in at 30 grams of protein per dish and are perfect after you just busted your ass in the gym and you get home and you're tired and you don't feel like slaving away making a meal. Just throw a Protein Plus Factor meal into the microwave and your gains will be there in no time. So by now I know you're hungry. Go to factor75.com and use code 50WAVY at checkout to get 50% off your first Factor box and free shipping. That's code 50WAVY at factor75.com for 50% off that first box and free shipping. Now let's get back to the story.
Several months later, in June of 2013, the media caught back up with Gary. After receiving a tip that he had skipped town and was shacked up in a hotel down in Glasgow, Kentucky. The man using the money previously earned from acting extremely disabled to finance the spot. ABC 13 reporter Melissa Warren went to investigate, finding Gary at the Happy Valley Inn. The pot-bellied panhandler was laid up looking well-fed and content in a hotel bed when the two spoke. And in this chat, Gary said he was done acting disabled, though, what do you know, he was lying.
We heard he was at the Happy Valley Inn, and sure enough, he was. So we asked him if the reports of his begging and pretending to be disabled were true.
We sued Honda of America for $2.4 million like years ago, but that money was gone after the market crashed, and then I was homeless. My mom has cancer, so then I had to panhandle to have a place to stay and to be able to eat.
Now, did you stop panhandling?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you say you haven't been doing that since you've been in Glasgow?
No, ma'am.
One hotel manager says that's not the case.
I've lost a lot of customers because they don't want to come here and be, people bumming from them as soon as they walk out the door.
She says he's also threatened to sue her by having a wheelchair accident.
He turns it over right there at that Coke machine.
Why do you think he does that?
Because he's out to try to sue because, that's how he gets by in life, by suing people.
The neighboring grocery store says they've witnessed him begging there.
Been known to be outside in the parking lot begging people for money / wanting to use their phone, and he's even came in and personally asked me for some free food in the past.
And Adwell says he's good at what he does.
I called him out by his name and let him know that I was aware of who he was, and he still didn't break character, so he does it fairly well.
Even if I were to panhandle, I couldn't say it because I just couldn't. I'm the best in the world, though, the best panhandler in the world.
Yes, it appears after leaving Lexington, Gary simply moved to a different region of the state and employed the same scheme on a new population that was less privy to his tactics. The guy was an absolute menace, and with flimsy laws regarding panhandling in Kentucky at the time, there was little to dissuade Gary from perpetrating his theatrics.
I'm the best in the world, though, the best panhandler in the world. I clear about $100,000 a year doing this. I gotta go, y'all. I gotta make some money. Sue Honda of America, $2.4 million.
Now, did you stop panhandling?
Yes, ma'am.
It seemed as if nothing could stop Gary, and the state of Kentucky would forever be forced to suffer at the crippled hands of the Bogus Beggar. That was until John Bowl enters the picture.
I'm John Bowl. John Bowl, Wave 3 News. John Bowl. John Bowl. I'm John Bowl with Wave 3.
The Bogus Beggar became internationally infamous.
Get out of my face, John.
Okay.
John Bowl, who is retired these days, was a seasoned reporter who worked for WAVE News in Louisville, Kentucky. John was known for his skills as an on-the-ground investigative journalist and was no stranger to busting crooks and calling out corruption in the state. Witnessing the Bogus Beggar's unchecked rampage around Kentucky, John essentially became the Batman to this joker, making it his mission to expose Gary at every turn possible. He was quite successful at this venture, catching Gary multiple times lying about dropping the Panhandling Act. John began personally documenting Gary and his disability grift in 2014, after receiving a tip indicating that Gary was unsurprisingly still begging for money, though this time in John's home turf of Louisville, Kentucky. John Bowl took to the streets and secretly documented Gary's movements, catching him panhandling in front of stores and restaurants, and even standing up and walking rather effortlessly at times, drawing into question how much Gary even needed his wheelchair. But the most damning of his on-the-ground research to this point came in the form of a hidden camera confrontation of Gary by John. Gary was still using the disabled voice to get donos.
When he spotted a guy in a tie, he saw a potential payday. But it was me, wearing a hidden camera.
Please help, but spare my wheelchair today and all my coins. Somebody takes it.
You fell out of your wheelchair today?
Yeah, mine need to get butt spare, get back home.
What's wrong with you?
Mine was hit by a truck when 9-year-old. But I no hurt that bad, just a little bit. Left side hit me preset.
What is your name?
My name's Gary David.
Gary Davis?
Nice to meet you.
When I pulled out another camera, everything changed.
You're really Gary Thompson.
No.
Yeah. My name is John Boll with Wave. Been watching you. You're the Bogus Beggar guy that makes $100,000 a year, right?
No.
And you're able to change your voice? I've seen all the stories on you.
That's a lie.
That's a lie? No. I noticed your speech got a little bit better just now.
Not a lie. I never asked him nothing. I go into Churchill Downs.
Gary, I know what your deal is now. Let's just be real here, okay?
I'm not doing no deal. Leave me off camera. I don't want to be on it.
Is it true that you burned through $2.5 million in a motorcycle crash lawsuit?
Not burn. Don't want to be on camera. I break it.
Don't you feel bad doing this, faking it like this when there are real people out here?
I'm not faking nothing.
This report from John was particularly damning for Gary, as many in the public had believed the beggar had since moved on from using the, disgusting, exaggerated, mentally handicapped character, and they thought he stopped panhandling, only to find that he was still making thousands of dollars doing this bullshit. The report was shared amongst news stations around the state, and unlike before, it was now becoming pretty difficult to find a person on the street who was unaware of who Gary the Bogus Beggar was. The guys soon found it near impossible to find marks for his scam, and would get called out in public when he tried his act. Gary actually spoke to a man on the street around this time and threw a pity party for himself, whining about how nobody would give him money anymore, and also adding that he couldn't find a job. Yeah, I'm sure. Gary, is the job application in the room with us now?
Every place I've been out there for a job, they don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah? So they've been calling you worse than a worthless POS?
Tell me they wanted to burn me with gasoline if I didn't leave their town.
So don't say any cuss words, but that's pretty bad. Yeah. Don't you realize that you really should leave town?
I don't have any money.
Yeah, well, you've made it this far without it.
Well, I'm not going to ask anyone for any money.
Yeah, okay.
Things only got worse for Gary, as he was slowly being made to deal with the consequences of his public fleecing in a legal capacity. The man often found himself in courtrooms, and even here he utilized his disabled character. This recording shows a judge doubling a fine issued at Gary after she realized that he was faking the special needs voice in her courtroom to gain sympathy.
I also understand, based on the interview that I watched you speak in, that when you wish to speak in a clear, understandable voice, you do so. The voice you used with me this morning was a voice that I feel certain you were trying to garner sympathy from this court by indicating that you maybe had a mental condition that did not permit you to speak clearly.
The Bogus Beggar's legal situation would only worsen. The man was arrested multiple times throughout 2014 for infractions related to his begging misadventures, and would begin to rack up a laundry list of fines and misdemeanor charges. But being a fraud and faking mental disability is really only scratching the surface of what this piece of shit was up to in 2014. This guy is truly something else.
Tonight, a man accused of trying to swindle people around the state is facing more serious charges.
A grand jury indicted Gary Thompson, this time on a rape charge. Victor Puente has more on this latest charge.
Frankfort police say the victim in this case actually has an intellectual disability, unlike the man charged with rape who's admitted to faking one.
On February 11th, 2014, it was reported that Gary had befriended a mentally disabled woman and allegedly raped her. According to the State Journal publication, the woman allegedly invited him to her apartment, claiming Gary had sexual intercourse with her until she claimed he was hurting her and she had to push him off. When the victim was interviewed, police officers quickly made the distinction that the woman suffered from a mental disability and they believed that she was incapable of giving consent. Gary Thompson was later charged with third-degree rape, and in May of 2015, he pled guilty. But by then the charge had been reduced down to sexual misconduct, so he was back on the streets in no time. Back on two wheels again, Gary eagerly hit the streets, likely chomping at the bit to talk like a dopey Looney Tunes character for cash. But unfortunately for our mentally deficient fraud, his brazen and illegal activity in local Kentucky had attracted the gaze of America's own Eye of Sauron, the FBI.
I clear about $100,000 a year doing this.
The feds became quite interested in Gary. While investigating him, they found that he had not only been panhandling and sexually assaulting locals, but had also been defrauding the government as well. The FBI alleged that from 2009 to 2013, Gary misrepresented the nature of his disability in order to receive supplemental security income, a form of Social Security money that's divvied out to a specific cohort of those with disabilities. Apparently, he was playing his up to fit that description.
Please help, but spare. I am normal. It just helps to be mentally handicapped.
As a result of this fraud, Gary would be arrested and later pled guilty in March of 2016 to falsely representing his mental condition in order to collect over $106,000 in Medicaid and disability benefits. Because of this, Gary would no longer be sitting fat in a Happy Inn hotel room. Rather, he was sentenced to a prison cell, spending close to 3.5 years behind bars. And with that, the Bogus Beggar had finally been stopped. At least that's what you might think.
Give me money and to get some eat.
Immediately after being released from prison, Gary got back to his scheming ways, hitting the ground rolling, the wheels spinning on his wheelchair as he got right back to panhandling and using the offensive fake disabled voice.
Whenever I ask you for money, I won't act mental. Why isn't that camera for? Whenever I ask you for money, I won't act mental. Whenever I ask you for money, I won't act mental. Whenever I ask you for money, I won't act mental. Why isn't that camera for? I'll just not act retarded anymore and get the money and just I'll be normal.
Seeing the scammers return, Gary's arch nemesis, reporter John Boll, would return to the streets, seeking to bust the beggar yet again, and prove the crook had learned nothing from his time in federal pen. In a stroke of luck, John happened to spot Gary in the act at a Louisville gas station, and he would stake out the position for a time before confronting the beggar, like Chris Hansen pulling up on a pizza-munching pedophile.
Yep, that's Gary Thompson right there. I've been following him around Louisville where he's doing the same thing. Same spots, same stores, same routine. So I went undercover and walked by him, working people for money at these gas pumps.
Mine would like a big red and $2 for bus fare, please.
$2 for bus fare?
Yeah. $1.50 there and $1.50 back, so that makes $2, right? $1.50 and $1.50. How much that equals?
$3?
Yeah.
The Mental Disability Act changes when he recognizes who he's talking to. Are you Gary?
Are you John Boll?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Gary.
So I pull out another camera again. That you're still faking your condition, embellishing your condition.
Sir, I'm not in condition.
Well, when I first walked up on you, you kind of had your voice change.
Yeah, I have personality, different personalities at times. The doctor tells me.
You have different personalities? He says he has multiple personalities and then starts having physical problems right there.
That's a muscle spasm, sir.
You're what?
That's a muscle spasm.
You just had a muscle spasm?
Yes, sir. I can walk a little bit, sir.
He shows me his physical problems, but I keep going back to his intellectual ability. What do you say to people who say you didn't learn anything in prison, you're still faking your condition?
They're liars. I'm not faking any condition.
But isn't that what you were convicted of faking your condition with getting government money?
That's I pled guilty, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not faking any condition. My left side is paralyzed.
You saw the videotape like over in Lexington where you're laughing about it and you're saying, yeah, I make $100,000 a year, I can change my voice, which we've seen you do.
But I am disabled, so I'm mentally and physically.
So how long have you been in Louisville?
About a month now.
About a month? What are you going to do next?
Try to get a job somewhere and do the right thing and straighten my life up. I'm homeless. I'm not a bogus beggar. I don't have anything. I wasn't bogus before. That's all I have to say to you. Have a good day.
Okay. But this battle of words between John and Gary was simply a warm-up, and their feud would continue, with John relentlessly documenting the antics of the beggar. Despite saying he was going to get a job and clean his life up.
What are you going to do next?
Try to get a job somewhere and do the right thing and straighten my life up.
Gary continued fucking up. An update from John sometime later.
But Gary Thompson didn't straighten his life up. For all the people who've asked me whatever happened to the Bogus Beggar, I discovered he wound up jailed here at Metro Corrections for most of this year after a stabbing melee at a 3rd Street apartment. The police report charging him with 2 counts of assault notes in an argument over some cigarettes that reminded him of an 8-ball of cocaine and $65 he lost earlier, Thompson struck the victim with his fist, stood up from his wheelchair and attempted to stab victim 1. Victim number 2 was also stabbed in the torso. Then Thompson stabbed himself, saying he wanted to die. In July, he pleaded guilty, got probation, got back out on the streets of Louisville, and I immediately started getting complaints ranging from the same old act to an attempted jewelry theft at a local mall.
Thanks to John's reporting, it was clear to see that this guy likely wasn't capable of reform. He would continue his fraudulent panhandling, criminal misconduct, and illicit shenanigans with seemingly no end in sight. But thankfully, with him being exposed and made infamous, these acts were becoming harder and harder for him to perpetrate. The party was coming to an end. The final boss battle between John and the Bogus Beggar occurred a couple of years ago, with a downtrodden Gary being confronted by John one last time. And what typically plays out in a war of words this time becomes physical.
Are you John Moe?
Yes.
You got a hidden camera?
Hey, Gary. When I come back with a cameraman, Thompson is perturbed.
Do you know why people would be calling me to complain about you?
I think I have an idea.
You have an idea?
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm homeless and I'm hungry.
You're homeless and hungry?
And I ask for food, yeah. And I ask for money for food. Yes. Do that in my face, John.
Okay, so part of the complaints are that you're doing this mentally ill thing again.
Mentally ill. I'm sure what I'm going to do to you, John.
What's that?
I'm sure what I'm going to do to you, John.
John had gotten the better of Gary. His panhandling schemes and unhinged nature now fully exposed to the public. It's with this that the journalist considered his work with the beggar complete. It's important to remember that it's mostly because of John's relentless pursuance of this criminal that the Bogus Beggar's activities came to light at all. The citizens of the state of Kentucky really are eternally in this reporter's debt for relieving them of Gary's nuisance panhandling persona. John Bull has recently retired from media, leaving behind a legacy of exposing dozens upon dozens of frauds and making Kentucky a better place for everyone that lives there.
Just a few more minutes now until I end my news career after more than 40 years in broadcast journalism.
We're so excited to have him around us.
Yeah, so you can see I have a lot to live for, right?
Yeah.
And I have my dad and my sister, and we're going to have so much fun. Didn't we have fun ice fishing?
And look at how many lives you have impacted, lives and careers. You have been a part of so many lives and touched so many people.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody, man. I never expected anything like this.
John's scorned nemesis, as you might expect, cannot claim such a happy ending to his story. As recently as October 4th of 2024, Gary Thompson was arrested and charged with 1 count of disorderly conduct and 2 counts of making terroristic threats after being involved in what has been described as a knife fight.
40-year-old Gary Thompson was arrested by Paintsville police Saturday, charged with trespassing, solicitation, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. Police say Thompson fakes mental and physical disabilities.
When police arrived on scene, they found Gary screaming profanities. When officers attempted to detain him, Gary allegedly threatened to kill these officers when he got out of jail. While I'm unable to ascertain if Gary is locked up or what exactly he's doing right now, I'd like to point you to this mosaic. A collection of mugshot images taken of Gary over the years as a result of his criminal exploits. There's a lot going on here. Time after time after time, this man has been arrested, lightly punished, and warned to cut the crap. Gary never changes. He will continue to exploit, defraud, and lie his way back to jail, likely even to prison again. And while Gary has fallen further into obscurity in recent years and his act is pretty much over, no Kentuckian will ever forget the notorious tale of the Bogus Beggar.
Yeah, I'm really good at it, really good. I'm the best in the world, though, the best panhandler in the world. I am normal. It just helps to be mentally handicapped. Whenever I ask you for money, I won't act mental.
Why isn't that camera for?
Rape charge.
I'll just not act retarded anymore.
But, Phil, don't want to be on camera. I break it.
I gotta go, y'all. I gotta make some money.
And well, you made it to the end. Commenters. If you have any individuals that you'd like me to do a single topic deep dive video on like I did today, leave that individual down below in the comments and I might investigate. But anyways, I want to give a major shout out to the patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.